recorded, which was never mentioned until I watched it on TV. So I will mention that we're being recorded and it will be on. So make sure your hair looks good. So I think we actually have to reorg, which may not be on the agenda.
No.
But I think we can add it to the agenda without it being a huge violation, just because we lost our chair to retirement. Should have mentioned it, I apologize. So, chair, I'm happy to step up.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sure, that's good.
So moved.
Favor?
Aye.
And then we'll need, thank you. Oh yeah, we have to do roll call technically, and then we need a vice chair.
So moved.
All right. In favor for Emery Foley as vice chair?
Aye.
All right. Mary, do you want to stay on as clerk?
Certainly.
All right, doing a great job. All right. I have just official nomination, just to be official.
So moved.
All
There you
right.
go. So
All
those
right,
citizens,
all in
that's
favor?
fine.
All right. Sorry about that. All right, and now first thing we have is we have to review and accept the meeting minutes. Thank you, Mary, for our minutes. It's been a minute, huh?
That we accept the April 11th minutes as submitted.
Second.
All
Second.
right, motion. Any further? None, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now we get to the heart of the meeting, which is reviewing the survey results.
Yeah.
All right.
I think either Nicole or Jennifer, we're gonna share your screen and walk us through what the survey tells us.
Sure, I can share my screen. So these are the survey results for the town of Grafton's American Rescue Plan Act funding survey. Of the respondents, 659 were town of Grafton residents. There were 8 business owners, so 33 that were both Grafton residents and business owners, and roughly 10 specified that they weren't part of either a resident or business owner, and there were 8 others. As far as zip codes go, the largest responding zip code in Grafton was 01519 with 335 surveys turned in. I'm not going to go through every detail of this. I can send it to you after. Followed by 01536, there were 250 survey respondents. The largest age demographic that we saw a return on from the surveys was community members who ranged in age between 40 and 49 at 230, followed by survey respondents that ranged in age from 50 to 59 with 129, followed by the age group of 30 to 39 at 128, with 2 members skipping. So this is kind of difficult to read. We asked residents to select 5 areas where the town of Grafton should invest its ARPA funding based on the guidance of eligibility provided by the U.S. Treasury. So we pulled it out of here in the top 3 of the 5. The first one being drinking water infrastructure upgrades at 59.46%. That was 418 survey respondents, followed by school building improvements at 55.33%. That was 389 survey respondents, with upgrades to parks Existing parks, Parks and Recreation, 46.51% at 327. Roughly followed by local economic development projects at 45.23% for 318 respondents. And then I think the one that follows after that, and I should have highlighted it, and I apologize, I didn't, I believe is the wastewater upgrades at 35.56. That was 250 respondents. Quickly followed behind public safety facilities equipment. That was 34.85%. That's 245 respondents chose that category. As far as the level of impact that COVID had on many households, 47.09% said that they had a slightly negative impact. That was 332 members of your community, followed by 36.17% had no impact. That's 255 members of your community. There was slightly just below 10% of survey respondents, 9.79. There was 69 respondents that had a major impact, and 1.28% with 9 respondents having a positive impact. That was pretty good. Those numbers are pretty good. If COVID's had a negative impact on their home, survey respondents were asked what assistance they needed, with the largest amounts at 70.77% saying other. That's 259 survey respondents. 345 individuals skipped this question. That was followed by utility assistance, with 72 respondents answering that they needed assistance with the utilities. 15.57% was looking for mortgage assistance, and roughly 10.93%, 40 respondents would like to see some food assistance. If you owned a business in Grafton, we asked if there was an impact, what level of impact that COVID-19 had on the businesses. 76.02% of businesses that responded, that was 187 individuals, said there was no impact to their business, with followed by 11.38%. That was 28 respondents with no impact, and then was slightly impacted, a slightly negative impact, followed by 8.54. That was 21 respondents that had a major negative impact. And slightly positive and major positive both ranked in at 2.03%, with 5 respondents saying that they either had a slightly positive impact or major positive impact.
Question.
Sure.
So, like on the first page, it indicates that there were like 41 people who either own a business in Grafton or outside of Grafton. So maybe I'm just not following how these numbers are so high on answers related to their business when there's only like 41 of them.
So there may have been, so of the people that answered the questions, I'm just going to go back to the first page. It may be someone that answered it on behalf of the business. So if they had worked in there, if they were a manager or a supervisor of a business, that could have been where they answered that provided impact on whether or not they saw it. Let's say you had a major hardware store or grocery store and they were a manager of that store. It's quite possible that they answered that. So when it asks for, I own a Grafton business, there were 8. And then I'm both a business and a resident, a business owner and a resident, 33. It didn't disqualify anyone from answering that business question because they may have been an operator for a store. Does that answer the question?
Just maybe then I'll just make the point that there were 41 people that responded that they either have a business in town or outside of town, and yet there's 246 people that responded to this question. That's all. Just it's kind of makes me just whatever take the information.
No, that's a good point. Okay, let's go back. So the next survey question inquired if COVID-19 has had a negative impact on their business, what assistance did they need? Again, of the respondents, there were 187 that responded to this question, yet there were only 40, I think you said 41 that said that they were business owners. The 88.24% of the respondents indicated other, with the highest number being utility assistant at 0.02%, which is 15 of the business owners or the respondents to the survey said that they needed assistance with utilities, while 6.24, which was 12 respondents, indicated that mortgage assistance would be helpful to them, and 4.81% with 9 respondents indicating that rental assistance would be helpful to them. We also asked respondents whether they were homeowners, renters, or others. 710 survey respondents answered this question with one skipping it. Of those 710, 92.25% were homeowners. Just under 6% were renters, and just under 2% specified other. For employment status, 710 survey respondents answered this question. Roughly just under 70% are full-time employed. A little, just under 12% were part-time employed, and 5% were unemployed, with 13.52% answering other. Now, this one's really hard to read. Of the 369 respondents that provided an open-ended ARPA question, there were 91 that said there were miscellaneous categories to, there was a lot of miscellaneous categories to spend the funding on. The highest category we saw were sidewalks, with 66 respondents indicating that they would like improved sidewalks or sidewalks. Roadway improvements came in with 44 respondents indicating that the roadways needed improvement in the town of Grafton, followed by mental health. And there is a breakdown on the next page. We just kind of pulled the highest ones up. Again, miscellaneous 91, sidewalks 66, roadway improvements 44. Mental health was about 18 respondents. There were 17 for parking or parking lot improvements, 17 again for affordable housing, 16 for schools. So it just kind of keeps going down that list. So there was, so that was, yes.
Can you expand on miscellaneous at all? So what is that? It just didn't fall into any of the things below. It was just one answer about random things.
There were either one answer or there were just comments.
Okay.
It wasn't necessarily an answer. It was just someone filled in a comment.
And let me just add, I mean, you should have, if you don't, we'll make sure you get it, but you should have all the open responses. It was just, it's a lot to read through. So Mary had asked us to kind of put them in categories if we could, to make it a little bit easier, but some of them, like Nicole said, it's just purely narrative. So you kind of have to read them, but it's a lot to read.
Where would that be found?
It's like 10 pages.
10 pages,
I think, yeah.
Okay.
So we
Yeah.
also,
Question, so would you have put trails under the open space section on that last slide?
yes, I did include trails and parks under open space because they kind of go together under that ARPA category.
You only came up with 9 still?
I believe so. We can double check the math.
I just feel like I saw parks and trails like more than 9 times, but that's no big deal.
We can go through it and run it again. We do use an analysis on it, so we can run it again. Of the businesses or the employers within Grafton, of the 410 respondents that answered this, 82.93% said that their current employee, it was not applicable for them to answer the question of whether or not they were fully staffed, having difficulty staffing, or either. And then there were 8% that said that they were understaffed or having difficulty finding and retaining employees. The following was they were fully staffed and had no difficulties. Employees was at 3.9%. So just under 4% of the people that answered that were having no problem with the staff. And followed by I'm fully staffed, but I have difficulty in finding and retaining employees is 3.4%. Any other questions?
I had a question, if you guys can hear me.
Yep. I can.
I don't remember, I know I did the survey, but I don't remember what I had for breakfast, so I'm not quite sure. Didn't say on there like cost of things like sidewalks are really expensive, as we all know, and road improvements are really expensive. So as I agree that we do need both. We didn't mark on there like the estimated cost for certain items, right?
Right, no, it's just general categories, yeah. I
Okay,
agree with you
okay.
though. I mean, sidewalks is always the I would say one of the most popular ones, but people really don't know how
They don't
expensive they
realize how
are.
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just couldn't remember what it actually said, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'll inch my way closer to the.
I don't think there are any other questions, he's saying.
Oh, okay, thank you.
What our next steps are and how we're going to communicate this out to the town. If we're ready for that, I don't know if we are. If we want to talk things that rose to the top, what Heather said about the sidewalks not being probably feasible with this amount of money, what we can do or talk about and present as actionable items, I think would be important.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should. Not as straightforward as maybe we thought it might be when it came out of there, although kind of is. So, I mean, I think that we can probably go through this list and survey results and pick out some projects and then funding towards sidewalks. I mean, even if you come down to the end and you say, look, we're going to take $500,000, we're going to put it towards these sidewalks. And it may be more than that, but we can use other monies to, in conjunction, right? So if you're going to come up with, that sidewalk is $750,000. Well, if we use $500,000 out of our, we can fund out of something else. One of the key areas that someone had pointed out was when you come down the hill out of the common towards that the sidewalk ends on that right-hand side and doesn't continue to get you across that intersection. And so when you have kids coming down from that area, they're crossing and crossing and crossing. And so that it may be something to look at, or maybe we need to look at a more targeted sidewalk as opposed to just that's a 40-year plan. Actually,
Yeah, I would agree with you, Evan. I think you're going to have a smaller section. I mean, I agree with the sidewalk. Like I said, I think you're going to have to come up with a small section. I know when we had our meeting at the library, that was mentioned that one little section needed because the kids are walking and it's a dangerous road. So if we do sidewalks, it definitely has to be a smaller section than which would that would be. Because I know on my road, when they did sidewalks, I think, I don't know, and he had said it was the easiest sidewalks they ever did. It was like over $1 million, right?
yeah, that's up in Milford Road.
Milford, yeah. Yeah.
$1 million project.
I don't know how easy it is on North Street. So
because it's crossing state property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Do it.
yeah.
But I mean, we can certainly, and Paul's obviously, it's a detriment that Paul's not here to have that particular conversation. But that might be something that we want to put, a pin in and say, we need to circle back at what does Paul think the estimated cost for that is? Or is there another sidewalk that Paul knows about that we don't, particularly at this table, that he says, no, this is you should really focus here. I don't know. I haven't heard it in any of our conversations that that's the case, but we can certainly look at it. Letter I had forwarded out, exactly the right time to bring that up is, so I had met with the Grafton Water District and the people at Tufts about, I went to the Water District and said, if you were to get some ARPA money, where would that money go? Because water is specifically addressed in ARPA. I think we talked about that last time. So they had said that they have two major projects that actually are in conjunction with Tufts that they thought would be appropriate. One is replacing some water main on Westboro Road. Apparently we have some water quality issues on the Tufts campus. And we also have what's called fire flow issues, which is should their sprinkler system need to come on, we have a hard time getting enough water up there. And so that's a concern from both a fire standpoint and a public health standpoint. They also had mentioned that adding a loop on Willard Road would not only give people on Willard Road access to public drinking water, but it would complete the loop and then help with the water quality and fire flow issues in that area. So what we had talked about was if the town decided to allocate some ARPA dollars, close to 500,000, that they would then kick in money. Tufts would kick in money from their capital campaign to create a joint project to increase and improve the water in that area. That was something I had sent out earlier that I think should be that water infrastructure is something. I don't think it probably fits in. I think every single person that answered that question has a water quality issue at their particular house, which is going to, multi.
Just have to make sure, because these are big projects, would they be able to complete it by December?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we did talk about. They had thought that this was probably a 24-25 project. Mainly because of the amount of time it would take them to get the pipe. So like the Westboro Road section, they thought that was actually probably like if I'm remembering correctly, it's like a 4 to 6 week actual project. It's once they get the actual the product to do the work.
Could you shift funds from another from money that we is I guess I'm just gonna say, can you shift funds? Meaning can you pay using ARPA pay for something else that we're doing on a road improvement that we're doing anyway, and then use that money that we would use for the water or something.
I
I'm
think-
saying that
You probably could, right? We're going to pave this road anyway, so you pay for the road and then you shift. I think that if that might add.
I'm sure there's a
complexity.
clean way to do it, but I don't want to say
That might-
shifty because I'm an accountant, so you don't want to say that.
It's already giving me the death stare when I was agreeing. But I think one of the things we could look at is, we're going to partner with, if we do that project, we partner with Tufts and with the water district. So the next step, I think, would be to bring them, or meet with those folks again and say, here's our drop dead date. Are we still confident that we could meet this deadline? And if they can, then I think, let's not go through all the rest of the process. Let's just get them moving in that direction.
Guidance I'm receiving from the state for projects fast in a timely manner, because they can claw back the money. The Fed can claw the money back, and they have with the state a little. And then we also have to worry about the 2024. It goes to Republicans, that is another worry. They can claw back the money.
Right.
So they are telling municipalities to spend the money rather quickly. Don't sit on it.
Looking at, and I don't know how other people feel, besides the survey, is what's going to benefit the largest group of people with this money. So I like the sidewalk where it's going to be in a public area versus somebody's neighborhood, which I'm a fan of sidewalks also, but just
Right.
either doing a small part. I'd like to see us expand a little bit on where we are in the town. So just thinking of those things. So the water, I think I still feel I need a little more information, but I love that it's a partnership between the organizations and it seems like it's great money. I don't know if there's other things that came up, like the park thing, what if there's a project we can do that would benefit everybody with the trails and parks? And I don't know what those projects would be.
Yeah, I think one of the places we should be looking, when talking about, well, so there's two ways to look at it, right? So there's using this money to pay for things that are going to impact the most amount of people in a
Right.
public way. But there's also the idea that you use these monies to fund those projects that you're probably not going to get funded otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like one of the things that I've had in my head since this money came out that I would love to see happen is I would love to see us give money to like the food bank here. If you gave the food bank $1,000, right, out of $5.5 million, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the money we got, but it's a huge change for the level of service that we're able to provide with something like that. And it's going to be hard to get $50,000 or whatever the number is for them in a different manner.
And there was one specific for
There was.
the refrigerator, which
Yeah.
I thought to
Right.
myself, so there's, like you said, there's a number of different ways to look at this, but that's a small thing that's just so easy.
Well,
Right.
that
You know?
enables them to give out fresh produce,
Yeah.
proteins and things like that, which can be
Right.
life-changing for
And-
people. when
But
you
you know,
know,
maybe
I
there's
think that
5 or
might have been
10
me.
little, really small things that we could bang out such
Right,
as that.
well, and if
Right.
you look at some of the planning stuff, I think Chris did a pretty good job of putting some of these smaller projects in here that you may be able to look at, like wayfinding and branding, right? Nobody thinks about that. It's a hard thing to get funded, but at the end of the day, that's what, when you're going through these other communities, you're like, well, the signage here is really nice. They've done a really thoughtful job of doing that. That's what did it, was that we came up with this proposal, so maybe there's some things out of that list. I was happy to see let me back up one other thing. The other thing that I saw in the study quite a bit was the senior center parking and municipal center parking lot project that surfaced quite a bit. I think that's going to be a funding priority for us in fiscal 24 as far as capital goes. So again, do we look at things like that and say, okay, well, we have capital fund money, we have general fund money. We don't want to take $500,000 of ARPA money and put it at a parking lot, but we can put $250,000 from ARPA towards that, and then we have to come up with $250,000 to do that. But I think it has a large impact on, the senior population that's coming in here. Again, it's a sliver, I think, of the population that actually uses the senior center, but I think the impact is pretty public, and they've been talking about it. When I go to the senior center, that's one of the recurrent things.
Slide where you broke it out into, it's like whatever the numbers for each thing. So the pay for like first responders and whatnot, did that just fall under other? Because that was something that came up very frequently. And the other thing would be like the grants, grant type programs for
Yep.
small businesses, et cetera. Fall under,
So when I ran the numbers, I did find that there were quite a few people, yes, but it only picked up about 8 responses when we ran the data. I'm gonna run it again after the meeting because I did look at the surveys for the trails and things and just ran a quick filter on that. And it looked like parks and open space were included together, but the trails were not included in that when we ran the data. So I'll run it again right after this meeting and I'll send it through updated.
this seems to recall a fair number of people talking about paying.
They were
for-
rough. Yeah. That would be included in the premium pay, I believe.
To the Council on Aging, right? Again, it's small dollars. It's funded in the capital plan, we're gonna find that money, but small impact on the dollars we're talking about here, but a pretty large impact on people using that service.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, maybe we can get funding some of those things. The other thing this doesn't really reflect, and maybe this, I mean, I'm not getting the general sense that we're all in any kind of like shape today to make any recommendations. So one of the things that I didn't do is go back through the salary study. It's all I've been doing for a year. That's the only thing that comes out about. The only thing that I didn't do was go back through the survey results and take any novel projects and move them over to our ARPA list.
Mhm.
Right? We haven't really captured any of that and maybe moved it for review.
So for me, it would be helpful, I suppose, on some of those items that you think be funded or are funded some other way, like we could highlight those, not that we'll exclude them necessarily, but just in terms of trying to prioritize things, I suppose.
Right.
Fine tune the results of this a little more, just to make sure that we captured, you know, all of it. Well,
I like the, I get, all comes from that. We did a grant for the LRRP, Local Rapid Recovery Program. And they pulled out like, you know, the grant, facade improvement grant, which is a grant that you give to local businesses to make the
Okay.
facade look a certain way, which is like when you go to, say, Turner's Falls and you drive through and you're like, my God, this place has this old timey feel or this really, you know, community feel to it. That's how they do that, is through the facade program. So I always, when I've looked at this list personally, I get drawn into that stuff because I do think that's pretty neat and can have a pretty big impact on.
well, those are just,
Yeah, so what Chris
it's
did
over
was.
here on the left.
Yes, so what Chris did was take the lessons or the guidance from that grant and then just plug them into here.
So it's a 50,000 here, okay.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was looking at that one, yeah.
Yep. Oh, and these are, you know, specific to certain areas, but what Chris had said is like, if you folks look at this and say, oh, that facade program seems really cool. You know, that has to do with the North Grafton specific area that he looked at. He's like, I can take that and extrapolate it out and say, okay, if you wanted to do it townwide, it's X amount of dollars. It's just a matter of whether we have interest or not.
Okay.
And I think one of the things to think about too, when we look at things that will get funded some other way is they'll get funded some other way, but that generally is pushing something else out. You know, it's gonna, like if we, $800,000 for Route 30 North Main Street intersection, where we're doing all that work that's where the Trek bike shop is, that area. You know, we're gonna fund that out of our roads capital stabilization, but that means that we defer $800,000 of roads back, right? So just things to think about. So, Madam Chair, do you want to? Month?
Yeah, I know, we're gonna get into vacations in July, but I think we'll just do the best we can.
Would it be another thing, would each department also maybe look at their list? Like, I know initially it was just like, go for it, put
Yeah,
everything out there.
scattershot, yep.
But maybe now
Yep.
that we know that we have half the funds or whatever is left, that they could even prioritize a little bit for us,
Would it
knowing
be-
that they might
do you-
have funding or they might
Right.
have this or they might have that.
Do you think, as far as the committee goes, it would be helpful to have the department heads recommend to you? Because I can get the department heads together and they might recommend stuff that isn't even on their list, because they recognize the priority of doing so. Like, the police might have X, Y, and Z, but they might say, yeah, but that Route 30 intersection, that is a total mess, and, you know, that community every single day. I don't know that they'd say that. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
hyperbole, but.
I mean, for me, the more information, the better from
Yeah.
folks that are.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree. I would take the list that came through on the survey and then divvy it out to the department heads and ask them to weigh in. Like you said, you know, they're gonna know better than we are as far as cost and true need.
So then maybe we could look at a date somewhere in the middle of July.
Yeah, what about,
Jesus. What? Go away. Decline.
Drop something there, Heather?
just back from vacation, so.
Ready to go.
Fresh
All
and
amped up. Right.
All right.
So
Awesome.
Nicole and Jennifer, thank you for joining us again. I think that was helpful.
Yeah.
And if you, Nicole, if you make those little tweaks, if you could send that over to Mary and I, we'll get it back. And we'll
Did
put
you
it
guys
up on
pick a
our.
date? Because you cut it. Wait, did you guys pick a date? Because you cut out.
Other of July.
I say that again?
18, 1/8.
Oh, 1/8. Got it. Of July. Got it.
I'll go through the survey tonight again, do all the open-ended questions, make sure that all the data is accurate and resubmit for tomorrow.
Thank you,
Great.
Nicole.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.